The air was thick with an unsettling tension as Laura and I approached the Miller residence. The old house loomed before us, its cracked windows and peeling paint telling stories of a troubled past. I felt a knot in my stomach, a reminder that the specters we were about to confront were not just figments of the imagination, but real, haunting echoes of pain that lingered in the walls. As we stepped onto the creaking porch, the front door swung open. Mark and Sarah Miller stood there, their faces pale and drawn, shadows of fear etched into their features. "Thank you for coming," Mark said, his voice barely above a whisper. We didn't know where else to turn. Laura nodded, her expression serious. "We're here to help. Can you tell us what's been happening?" Sarah stepped forward, her hands trembling slightly. "It started a few weeks ago. At first, it was just small things. Objects moving on their own, strange noises at night, but then it escalated. Last night, she was attacked." My heart raced at the mention of their daughter. "Attacked?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Mark interjected, his voice laced with desperation. "We found her in the living room, screaming. There were marks on her back, like claw marks. We don't know what to do." Laura exchanged a worried glance with me. "We need to speak with Lily," she said, and I could hear the determination in her voice. As we followed Mark and Sarah into the house, the atmosphere felt suffocating. The walls seemed to close in around us, as if they were holding secrets too dark to be revealed. In the corner of my eye, I caught a glimpse of a shadow darting past, but when I turned, there was nothing there. We found Lily at the top of the staircase, her small figure silhouetted against the dim light. She was staring into the darkness, her eyes wide and unblinking. "Lily?" I called softly, hoping to coax her down. She turned slowly toward us, her expression vacant. "They're here," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "The souls that don't rest, they want me to help them." Laura knelt down to her level, her eyes gentle and reassuring. "Can you tell us more about these souls, sweetheart? What do they want from you?" Lily shivered, wrapping her arms around herself. "There's a woman in my dreams. She wears a black dress and cries. She says she needs help." Her voice quivered, and I could see the fear etched on her small face. "Help?" I repeated, my mind racing. "What kind of help?" Lily's gaze drifted past us, her eyes glazed over. "She says it's not fair. They hurt her. They hurt all of them." I felt a chill run down my spine. It was becoming clear that the horrors in this house were rooted in something much deeper than mere poltergeist activity. There was a history here, one that needed to be uncovered. Laura glanced at me, her expression one of concern mixed with resolve. "We'll help her, Lily. But we need to understand what happened. Can you show us more about your dreams?" With a heavy heart, I stepped into the living room, my mind racing with thoughts of the past. I noticed a dusty wooden shelf, and driven by an instinct I couldn't explain, I moved closer. My fingers brushed against the surface, and something caught my eye. A small leather-bound diary sticking out from behind a loose panel. "Laura, over here!" I called, pulling the diary free. The leather was cracked and worn, but it felt significant, as if it were a key to the mysteries that surrounded us. As I opened it, the musty scent of old paper filled the air. The entries were scrawled in a frantic hand, detailing events that unfolded long ago, mentions of a witch trial, of innocent women condemned to death by ignorance and fear. My breath caught in my throat. This was it. This was the origin of the darkness that plagued the Millers. "David, what did you find?" Laura asked, her voice filled with urgency as she joined me. "This diary, it speaks of a tribunal, of women like Eleanor, innocent souls who suffered at the hands of those who feared them." My voice trembled as I read the words aloud. They were wronged, and their pain, it lingers here. As the weight of the revelation settled over us, I felt the atmosphere shift in the house. The air grew colder, and an eerie silence enveloped us. The Millers' fears were not unfounded. We were stepping into a history steeped in sorrow, and the echoes of the past were beginning to awaken. The air in the Miller house was thick with an unshakable tension that clung to my skin like a second layer. As I stood in the dimly lit hallway, the unsettling whispers seemed to echo in my ears, almost as if the walls themselves were alive, recounting their tragic tales. I shifted my gaze toward Laura, who was crouched down, speaking softly to Lily, the youngest Miller. whose wide, frightened eyes reflected a mix of innocence and something far more profound, an understanding of the darkness that lurked around us. "Lily, can you tell me more about your dreams?" Laura asked gently, her voice soothing like a balm. I watched as the little girl nervously twisted the hem of her sweater, glancing up at her parents before returning her gaze to Laura. "There's a woman in a black dress," she whispered, her voice barely a murmur. "She comes to me at night. She wants help." I stepped closer, intrigued by the gravity of the child's words. "What does she say, Lily? What does she want?" I pressed, my heart racing at the thought of what might be haunting this family. "She says the souls can't rest," Lily continued, her voice trembling. "They're trapped. I think she's one of them. She's sad." A chill ran down my spine as I exchanged a glance with Laura. It was clear that this little girl was not just experiencing nightmares, but was tapping into something much darker. I could feel the weight of the house pressing down on us, the burden of its history, and I knew we had to uncover the truth before it consumed Lily and perhaps the rest of the family as well. Later that night, as we attempted to document the strange occurrences, the house seemed to breathe around us. Shadows flickered at the edge of my vision, and the air was heavy with another presence. I glanced at Laura, who was focused on her recording device, but her brow was furrowed with worry. Suddenly, a sound pierced the silence, a soft, eerie whisper that sent a shiver down my spine. I turned quickly, just in time to see Lily standing at the top of the staircase, her eyes glazed over, staring into the darkness. "Lily!" Laura called out, her voice laced with concern. "What's wrong?" The girl's lips parted, and in a distant voice, she murmured, "They're here. They're watching." I felt a surge of dread. "Lily, come down," I urged, instinctively stepping closer to the stairs. But she stood frozen, as if caught in a trance, her small frame illuminated by the flickering light of the hallway. We exchanged worried looks, and just as I was about to reach for her, I remembered the diary I had found earlier, hidden behind a loose panel in the wall. It detailed the grim history of this place, a tribunal of witches, innocents condemned, their spirits restless. The realization struck me like a blow. "Laura, I think I've found something," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I pulled out the diary, my fingers trembling as I flipped through the pages filled with scrawled handwriting that spoke of fear and injustice. "David," Laura said, her voice urgent, "we need to focus on Lily. Whatever is happening in this house is connected to her." "Right," I replied, torn between the urgency of the situation and the chilling revelations of the diary. As we rushed to Lily's side, the air grew colder and the whispers intensified. "We need to get her away from the stairs," I said, gripping Laura's arm. "It's not safe." With a determined nod, Laura called out to Lily, her voice firm yet gentle. "Lily, honey, come down. We need you to be with us. You're safe here." Slowly, as if pulled from a deep sleep, Lily descended the stairs, her small feet hesitating on each step. When she reached us, I knelt down to her level, searching her eyes for any trace of the fear that had gripped her moments ago. "Lily, you're not alone. We're here for you," I said, trying to instill some measure of comfort. But just then, Mark and Sarah burst into the room, their faces etched with panic. "It's happening again," Mark exclaimed, his voice cracking. "She's getting hurt." I felt my heart race as Sarah revealed Lily's back, where deep, claw-like marks marred her delicate skin. "We need to do something," she cried, and I could see the desperation in their eyes. Laura's expression turned serious. "We have to act fast. This entity is growing more dangerous, and we have to figure out how to stop it before it's too late." A sense of urgency enveloped us. We needed answers, and we needed them now. The weight of the past loomed over us, and I knew we were racing against time. As shadows danced across the dimly lit living room, the air thick with tension as David and I prepared for the séance. The family Miller huddled together on the worn couch, their faces pale and drawn, the flickering candlelight casting eerie shapes on the walls. I glanced at David, his expression a mix of determination and trepidation. We had to reach out to the entity tormenting this family, to understand its pain and perhaps bring some semblance of peace. "Are you ready?" I whispered, my heart racing. David nodded, though uncertainty flickered in his eyes. "Let's just hope we can make contact without any complications." We arranged the family in a circle, their hands trembling as they joined ours. Lily, the youngest, sat wide-eyed between her parents, her small fingers intertwined with mine. I could feel her fear, a palpable energy that seemed to vibrate through the room. "It's okay, Lily," I reassured her softly. "We're here to help Eleanor find peace." "Who's Eleanor?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I exchanged a glance with David, who replied, "She's the woman we think might be connected to all this. Just trust us, okay? We're going to talk to her." As we settled into the circle, I placed the Ouija board in front of us, the planchette resting in the center. The room fell silent, the only sound the soft crackle of the candles. I took a deep breath, closing my eyes for a moment to center myself. "Spirit of Eleanor, if you can hear us, please come forward." David's voice joined mine, a steady anchor. "We mean you no harm. We want to understand your pain." At first, nothing happened. The air grew heavier and I could almost hear the heartbeats of everyone in the room. Then, slowly, the planchette began to move. A shiver ran down my spine as it glided across the board, spelling out the letters, Eleanor. "Eleanor," I breathed, a mix of excitement and fear coursing through me. "Can you tell us why you're here?" To our shock, the planchette moved again, spelling out Vengence. David's face hardened. "What do you want from us? Why do you torment this family?" The atmosphere shifted, a cold draft sweeping through the room. I felt a weight in my chest as if the very essence of Eleanor's sorrow pressed down on us. "Eleanor, we want to help you," I said, my voice trembling slightly. "You don't have to be angry anymore." "Anger is all I have," the board spelled out, and we all felt a sharp intake of breath from Mark, Lily's father. "Why?" David pressed. "What happened to you?" The planchette paused, hovering over the letters before finally spelling Solace. "Solace?" I repeated, confused. "You're looking for peace?" A gust of wind rattled the windows, and the candles flickered violently. My heart raced as a shadow began to take form in the corner of the room, dark and menacing. I could feel the fear radiating from the Millers, their eyes wide with panic. "Stay calm," I urged, trying to keep my voice steady. "Eleanor, we're here for you. Let us help you find solace." David's hand tightened around mine, his knuckles white. "What do we do?" he whispered, fear creeping into his voice. "Focus on her pain," I suggested, remembering the stories we had uncovered about the injustices she faced. "Show her compassion." Suddenly, the shadow lunged forward and a piercing scream echoed through the house. "You cannot understand." The voice was a chilling blend of despair and fury, reverberating off the walls. "Eleanor," I shouted, desperation clawing at my throat. "We do understand. We know you've suffered. We want to help you find peace." The shadow hesitated, as if my words had struck a nerve. "You speak of peace, yet you live in a world that condemned me," she replied, her voice now softer, filled with sorrow. David took a deep breath, his eyes locked on the shadow. "Eleanor, we are not your enemies. We are here to listen and to help you find the justice you were denied." The atmosphere shifted once more, the weight of anger slowly dissipating. I could feel the tension in the room begin to ease, but I knew we were far from finished. We had to reach her, to show her that she wasn't alone in her suffering. As the echo of her sorrow lingered in the air, I sensed that we were on the edge of something profound. The shadows whispered around us, and I hoped that we could finally bridge the gap between her pain and our understanding. As shadows danced along the walls of the Miller house, as the flickering candlelight cast eerie shapes that seemed to pulse with a life of their own. Laura and I sat at the kitchen table, poring over the notes we'd gathered, the weight of our task pressing heavily on my chest. Every creak of the old house sent a shiver down my spine, reminding me that we were not alone in this investigation. "David, look at this," Laura said, her voice barely above a whisper. She pointed to a passage in the journal I had found, the ink faded but still legible. "It says here that Eleanor was one of the women condemned during the witch trials. She was accused of witchcraft simply for being different." I leaned in closer, my heart racing as I read the words. "It doesn't matter how many years have passed, the injustice remains, and it's feeding the entity that's haunting this family." I glanced at the family, who were seated in the living room, clearly on edge, their eyes darting nervously around the room. "We need to help her." Laura's brow furrowed as she considered our options. "There's a ritual mentioned here. It says we can free Eleanor's spirit, but we'll have to face our fears. It won't be easy." I nodded, steeling myself for what lay ahead. We have to do it. If we don't, Lily could be in real danger. The thought of that little girl being harmed sent a surge of determination through me. Let's prepare. As we gathered the necessary items for the ritual, the atmosphere grew thick with tension. I found myself holding an artifact that had belonged to Eleanor, a delicate silver locket tarnished with age. The moment I touched it, a flood of memories crashed over me, visions of a time long gone where women were persecuted for their knowledge and strength. David? Laura's voice broke through my reverie, pulling me back to the present. Are you all right? I shook my head, trying to dispel the images swirling in my mind. I saw Eleanor. She was scared, Laura. They were dragging her to the gallows and she was pleading for her life. We have to let her know she's not alone anymore. Laura placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. We will. We're going to help her find peace. But first, we need to prepare ourselves. What are you afraid of? The question hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. I thought of my sister, of the guilt I carried like a stone around my neck. I'm afraid of failing again, I admitted, my voice trembling. I couldn't save her, and I don't want to let Eleanor down too. Laura's eyes softened. You can't carry that burden forever. We need to confront it, David. Together. With a deep breath, I nodded. You're right. Let's do this. The night deepened as we gathered the Millers, forming a circle in the living room. The air crackled with energy, and the flickering candles cast long shadows that seemed to stretch towards us. Lily, the youngest, stood beside her parents, her small hand clutching her mother's. Are you sure about this? Mark asked, concern etched across his face. It's the only way, I replied firmly. We need to reach out to Eleanor and show her that she's not forgotten. Laura looked at Lily, kneeling down to meet her gaze. You can help us, Lily. Your courage is important. The little girl nodded bravely. I want to help Eleanor. She needs us. As we began the ritual, I could feel my heart race. With each chant, I focused on my fears, the pain of my past, and the injustices that had taken place within these walls. I glanced at Laura, whose determination mirrored my own. Together, we would face whatever came next. Eleanor, if you can hear us, I called out, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. We are here to help you find peace. The room grew colder, and I felt a presence brush against my skin. A chill ran down my spine, but I pressed on, determined to connect with the spirit that had suffered for far too long. We understand your pain. We know you were wronged. Suddenly the air thickened, and I felt a wave of emotion wash over me, a tidal force of sorrow and rage. I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of Eleanor's anguish pressing down on me. You're not alone, Eleanor. We're here for you. Laura's voice joined mine, and together we pleaded for her to listen. We want to help you find forgiveness, to free you from this pain. As I opened my eyes, the shadows in the room began to shift, swirling around us. I could feel the energy building, a palpable force that seemed to draw us closer to Eleanor's essence. And in that moment, I realized that we were not just fighting for her. We were fighting for ourselves as well. The atmosphere in the dimly lit living room was thick with apprehension as we gathered in a circle, the air charged with an electricity that made my skin crawl. The faint flicker of candles cast elongated shadows on the walls, and I could feel the weight of the Miller's fear pressing down on me. David stood beside me, his brow furrowed with determination, but I could sense the turmoil bubbling just beneath the surface. We were about to confront something far beyond our understanding. Are you ready for this? I whispered to David, glancing at the trembling family huddled together. Mark and Sarah clutched Lily, their youngest, whose eyes were wide with both terror and an inexplicable resolve. I have to be, David replied, his voice steady but eyes betraying a flicker of doubt. For Eleanor and for Lily. We had spent days piecing together the tragic history that plagued this house, and now we stood on the precipice of confronting the very entity that had haunted the Millers. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the amulet in my pocket, a reminder of Eleanor's tragic fate. It was time to invoke her spirit, to seek the truth and hopefully release her from the chains of vengeance that held her captive. Everyone, please hold hands, I instructed softly, my voice barely above a whisper. As we joined our hands, I felt a warmth radiate through the circle, an unspoken bond forming among us. David squeezed my hand tightly, and I could feel his anxiety merging with mine. "Let's call upon Eleanor," I said, closing my eyes. "We seek your presence and wish to understand your pain." The room grew colder, a shiver running down my spine. I opened my eyes just in time to see the Ouija board shift slightly under our hands. Eleanor, it spelled out, the planchette, moving with an eerie precision. A chill swept through the air, and the flickering candles flickered violently, casting ominous shadows on the walls. "Eleanor, we know you're here," David called out, his voice strong, yet laced with an undercurrent of fear. "We want to help you. Please, tell us what you need." Suddenly the atmosphere shifted. A heavy silence enveloped us, and I could feel the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. Then, a voice echoed through the room, a distorted sound that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere all at once. "Help me, Eleanor?" I breathed, my heart racing. "We're here for you. What do you want?" "I seek justice," the voice resonated, filled with anguish. "They condemned me for crimes I did not commit." "Who condemned you?" I pressed, desperate to understand. "Men, blind to truth. They took my life." The voice trembled, and I could sense the pain radiating from it. "I am lost in the shadows." "David, we need to focus," I urged, glancing at him. "We have to help her find peace." He nodded, though the tension in his body was palpable. "Eleanor, we understand your suffering, but holding on to this anger won't bring you peace. You deserve to be free." "Free?" Her voice became a haunting wail, echoing through the walls. "Free from what? They took everything." I felt David's grip tighten around my hand, and I could see the internal battle raging within him. "Eleanor, please," he pleaded. "If you let go of this anger, we can help you find justice. But you must trust us." "Trust?" The voice softened, confusion mixing with sorrow. "How can I trust those who wronged me?" "That's why we're here," I interjected, my voice steadying. "We want to tell your story. We want the world to know what happened to you. You're not alone anymore." The energy in the room shifted again, and I could feel a flicker of hope mingling with the despair. "Tell my story." Eleanor's voice echoed, more subdued now, as if she were mulling over the words in her mind. "Yes, we will. Together," David assured her, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. "You have to let us in. We can help you find peace, but you must forgive those who wronged you. It's the only way." In that moment, I felt the weight of my own past creeping in, the shadows of my own fears and regrets threatening to consume me. I glanced at David, who seemed to sense my inner turmoil. "Laura, focus," he urged gently, as though reading my thoughts. "We're in this together." Taking a deep breath, I refocused on Eleanor. "You can be free, Eleanor. Your pain doesn't have to bind you any longer. Allow us to help you find the light." As the words left my lips, I felt a shift in the energy around us. The shadows seemed to waver, as if contemplating our plea. David's expression was one of fierce determination, and I knew we had to keep pushing forward. "Eleanor, let us help you find justice," David reiterated, his voice unwavering. "Let us honor your memory." The room grew silent, and I could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on us. The candles flickered wildly, and the air crackled with energy. I squeezed David's hand tighter, both for my own reassurance and for him to know we were in this together. "Please, Eleanor," I whispered, hoping my voice would reach her. "Let go of the pain and allow us to show you the truth." As the ritual began to unfold, the air thickened with tension, almost palpable against my skin. I could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on us, a collective anxiety mingling with our determination. David and I stood in the center of the room, surrounded by the Millers, their faces etched with fear and hope. Little Lily, despite her trembling hands, had insisted on participating, believing she could help her friend Eleanor. I admired her courage, but I worried for her safety. "Are you sure you want to do this, Lily?" I asked gently, kneeling to meet her gaze. Her big, frightened eyes searched mine, and for a moment I feared she might back away. But then she nodded resolutely. "I want to help Eleanor. She needs us," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the howling winds outside. David took a deep breath, his expression a mixture of resolve and vulnerability. I could see the internal battle raging within him, shadows of his past clawing at the edges of his mind. "We can do this together," he said, his voice steady despite the storm outside. "We have to believe we can reach her." As we formed a circle, our hands clasped tightly around the small table. I felt an electric charge in the air. The atmosphere was charged with unspoken fears, regrets, and the longing for redemption. I glanced at David, who appeared lost in thought, and I squeezed his hand reassuringly. "Focus on Eleanor. We need to show her she's not alone." "Right," he replied, his eyes flickering with uncertainty. "Let's do this." We closed our eyes and I took a deep breath, channeling all the energy I could muster into the space around us. "Eleanor, we're here for you," I called out, my voice echoing softly in the dim light of the room. "We want to understand your pain. Please, show us." The room grew colder, a chill creeping up my spine as I felt the presence of something ancient and sorrowful. The tattered curtains fluttered, despite the absence of wind, and the candles flickered ominously. David's grip tightened around my hand as the table began to tremble beneath our palms. Suddenly, the Ouija board moved, the planchette gliding across the surface, spelling out a name. Eleanor. A cold shiver coursed through me, and I opened my eyes, meeting David's gaze. "She's here," I murmured, feeling a rush of adrenaline. "Eleanor, we want to help you," David urged, his voice firm. "We're not your enemies. We want to understand what happened to you." The shadows in the room deepened, and a wailing sound echoed, reverberating through the walls as if the very house itself was crying out in pain. I felt Lily's tiny fingers grip my arm tightly. "What's happening?" She gasped, fear etched on her innocent face. "It's okay, Lily," I said, forcing a calmness I didn't quite feel. "Just stay close to us." Then, in a heartbeat, the temperature plunged, and a figure began to manifest before us, a swirling shadow that coalesced into a shape. It was Eleanor, but twisted with anguish, her form fluctuating like smoke in the wind. "Leave me be," she screamed, her voice a haunting blend of rage and despair. "Eleanor, please, we're here to listen," David shouted over the din, desperation clawing at his throat. "We know you've suffered. We want to help you find peace." The entity recoiled, the darkness swirling violently around her. "You don't understand. I was betrayed. I was innocent." Her voice cracked, revealing the deep sorrow beneath the surface. In that moment, I felt a surge of empathy wash over me. "Eleanor, we do understand," I said softly, tears welling in my eyes. "We know what it's like to be hurt, to be lost, but you don't have to carry this pain anymore. Let us help you release it." The shadow hesitated, flickering like a candle in the wind. I turned to David, sensing his inner turmoil. "You have to face your pain too," I whispered urgently. "You can't help her if you're still trapped in your past." He looked at me, the weight of my words sinking in. I can't let go of her," he choked out, the anguish evident on his face. "David, you have to. You can't save her if you don't let go of your guilt," I urged, feeling the emotional storm brewing around us. "You are not responsible for what happened." As if responding to our words, the energy in the room shifted. The entity's form flickered, revealing glimpses of a tragic past. Eleanor's trial, her screams of innocence echoing through time. It was a moment of profound connection, a realization that we were all bound by our shared humanity, our fears, and our desires for forgiveness. "Please, Eleanor," I pleaded, my heart racing. "You deserve to be free. Let go of your pain. Let us help you." The air around us thickened with an almost tangible weight as we stood in the dimly lit room, the flickering candlelight casting eerie shadows on the walls. My heart raced as I clutched the hands of David and Lily, feeling the tremor of fear coursing through them. The entity was about to reveal something significant, and I could sense the urgency in the atmosphere. "Stay focused, Laura," David whispered, his voice tight with tension. I nodded, unable to find words as a chill ran down my spine. The entity, Eleanor, was here, and I could feel her presence enveloping us like a dark cloud. Suddenly, the air crackled, and a vision surged through me, unbidden. I saw flashes of a courtroom, the faces of women, innocent, terrified, standing before a judge with a grim expression. Their pleas for mercy echoed in my mind. I gasped, instinctively pulling David closer to me. "Do you see that?" I breathed, my eyes wide with horror. He nodded, his gaze locked onto a dark figure that seemed to pulse with rage. "It's the tribunal," he murmured, "the injustice they faced." The room around us faded, replaced by the vivid imagery of the past. I could hear their voices, cries for help mingling with the sound of gavel strikes and the murmur of a crowd eager for blood. "Eleanor," I called out, my voice trembling. "We know you were wronged. We want to help you find peace." The shadow intensified, swirling like a tempest. You think your words mean anything? A voice boomed, resonating through the room, sending chills down my spine. I was betrayed. My life was stolen from me by those who feared what they did not understand. Please, Eleanor. Lily's small voice broke through, shaky but determined. You don't have to be angry anymore. You can let go of the pain. The shadow hesitated, wavering as if assessing the sincerity of her words. You speak of compassion, child, it hissed. But do you understand the depths of my suffering, the years of torment I endured? David stepped forward, his voice steady despite the palpable fear. We understand, Eleanor. We see your pain, and we know it's not fair, but holding on to this anger only continues the cycle of hurt. He looked deeply into the swirling darkness as if trying to find a flicker of humanity within it. You don't have to be alone anymore. We're here to help you. The vision shifted again, revealing a woman in a tattered dress, her eyes filled with despair as she was led to her execution. They thought I was a witch, Eleanor's voice echoed, filled with bitterness. They thought they could silence me forever. I felt a surge of empathy wash over me. Eleanor, you are not alone, I said softly, my heart aching for her. You are remembered. You are not just a ghost. You are a part of our history, and we can help you find peace. The shadow seemed to ripple, caught between rage and sorrow. What do you know of loss? It retorted, the anger returning. What do you know of being forsaken? I know it well, David replied, his voice breaking slightly. I lost my sister. I felt her pain and helplessness. But I learned that love can transcend even death. I can feel that same love in you, Eleanor. You just need to let it in. The energy in the room shifted again, as if a soft breeze had swept through, carrying whispers of hope. Love? Eleanor's shadow wavered, flickering with uncertainty. You think I could feel love after all this time? Yes, I said, stepping closer, emboldened by the connection I felt with her. You can. It's not too late to release the anger that binds you to this place. You can find solace and forgiveness, both for yourself and for those who wronged you. Do you truly believe that? Eleanor asked, her voice softening, tinged with a hint of vulnerability. We do, Lily chimed in, her small voice filled with conviction. You can be free, you can finally rest. In that moment, the room pulsed with energy, and I could see the flickering shadows begin to lose their intensity. David squeezed my hand, and I could feel the warmth of his determination. Together, we stood united, hoping to break the chains that held Eleanor captive. Please, Eleanor, I urged, my voice steady and filled with compassion. Let go of the pain. We are here with you. We want to help you find your peace. As I spoke, I sensed a shift in the air, a dawning realization that perhaps, just perhaps, we could help her find the release she so desperately needed. As the air around us thickened with tension, I could feel the weight of our mission pressing down on me. We were all gathered in a tight circle, hands clasped together, hearts racing, as we faced the entity that had tormented the Miller family for far too long. The flickering candlelight cast eerie shadows on the walls, and I could sense the energy in the room shifting, swirling like a tempest, waiting to break. Eleanor, I called out, my voice steady despite the fear gnawing at my insides. We're here to help you find peace. You don't have to suffer anymore. My words hung in the air, trembling as if they could be swallowed by the darkness that surrounded us. Laura squeezed my hand, her presence grounding me. I glanced at her, seeing the determination in her eyes mirrored my own. We understand your pain, she added gently. No more fear, no more vengeance, just peace. Suddenly, the temperature dropped, sending a chill through the room. The shadows deepened, and a figure began to take shape in the corner, growing more defined with every passing moment. The entity manifested as a dark silhouette, its features obscured, but its presence unmistakably powerful. It was Eleanor, and I could feel the anger radiating from her like a storm ready to unleash its fury. Why have you come? Her voice echoed through the room, chilling and hollow. You cannot understand the depth of my suffering. We do understand, I replied, my heart pounding. We know the injustice you faced. We're here to help you find the truth, to set you free. The shadow flickered, and I could see glimpses of her past. Images of a courtroom filled with scornful faces, accusations flying like daggers. They condemned me for being different. They took everything from me. Her voice rose, filled with rage and sorrow, and I could feel the darkness in the room swell with her emotions. Eleanor, I said, my voice stronger now. We are here to tell you that you are not alone. You don't have to carry this burden anymore. As I spoke, I noticed Lily standing bravely at the edge of our circle, her small frame trembling, but her eyes ablaze with a fierce determination. You can let go of the pain, she called out, her voice unwavering despite the fear that threatened to envelop her. You can be free. For a moment, the entity hesitated, and I saw a flicker of something human behind the rage, perhaps a hint of hope. Free? Eleanor echoed, her voice softer now, almost wistful. Can there truly be freedom for me? Yes, Laura interjected, her voice filled with compassion. You've fed on fear for too long, but it's time to embrace compassion instead. You can choose to let go of the pain. I felt the energy of the room shift again, the oppressive weight lifting slightly as Eleanor's form flickered uncertainly. Compassion? She asked, her voice trembling. What do you know of compassion? You live in a world that abandons those who suffer. Maybe, I replied, my heart breaking at the truth in her words. But we're here to show you that there's still love in this world. It's not too late for you to find peace. As I spoke, I felt the warmth of Laura's hand in mine, and I knew we had to push forward. Eleanor, I said, my voice steady, understand the strength of compassion. It can break the cycle of pain and vengeance. We're not here to judge you. We want to help you heal. With every word, I poured my heart into the plea, hoping it would reach the depths of her tortured soul. You've been trapped for far too long. Your pain has fed on fear, but we offer you something different. Understanding, forgiveness, and the chance to finally rest. Slowly, as if awakening from a long slumber, I saw a flicker of light within the darkness. Eleanor's shadow began to soften, her features becoming less menacing. Forgiveness, she murmured, almost to herself, as if the word was foreign to her. Yes, Eleanor, I urged, feeling a surge of determination. Forgiveness is powerful. It can release you from the chains of your past. The room began to vibrate with energy, and I could see the shadows retreating as the light of compassion grew stronger. Forgive those who wronged you, Laura said, her voice a soothing balm amidst the chaos, and forgive yourself for the pain you've caused. In that moment, the air shifted, the darkness lifted, and a fragile light began to shine through the cracks of Eleanor's rage. I do not wish to be alone anymore, she confessed, her voice quivering with vulnerability. The tears in her voice broke through the final barriers, and I felt the connection deepen. You don't have to be, I replied, tears welling in my eyes. Together we can find peace. And as the shadows began to fade, I realized that Eleanor's true strength lay not in her vengeance, but in her desire for connection and understanding. In that moment, I knew we were on the brink of something profound. As shadows of the past began to lift, the oppressive atmosphere that had clung to the Miller house was gradually replaced by an overwhelming sense of relief. I could feel the weight of the world lifting off my shoulders as I stood there, surrounded by Mark and Sarah, their faces streaked with tears of gratitude. The air felt lighter, as if the very walls were breathing anew. Thank you, Mark said, his voice choked with emotion. You have no idea what you've done for us. Eleanor, she's finally at peace. He turned to Sarah, who nodded, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. I exchanged a glance with Laura. We had faced darkness together, and now, standing in the aftermath of it all, I felt a warmth blooming in my chest. It was a team effort, I said, my voice steady but filled with warmth. You all showed incredible strength. Laura stepped forward, placing a comforting hand on Lily's shoulder. The little girl had been so brave throughout the ordeal, and now her eyes sparkled with a mix of relief and wonder. You were amazing, Lily, Laura said, kneeling to meet her gaze. You helped us connect with Eleanor in ways we couldn't have done alone. Lily smiled shyly, her earlier fears seemingly washed away. I just wanted to help my friend, she replied, her voice quiet yet determined. It was as if she had embraced a new level of understanding, not just about Eleanor, but about the power of compassion and kindness. As the family began to gather their things, I felt the lingering presence of Eleanor in the air, like a gentle caress. It was bittersweet, knowing that we had helped her find peace, yet I couldn't shake the feeling that something significant had changed within me as well. I had faced my past demons, and while the scars would remain, I felt lighter, as if I had shed a layer of guilt that I had carried for far too long. David, Laura said, breaking my reverie. Are you okay? Her brow furrowed with concern, and I appreciated that she could read me so well. Yeah, I'm fine, I replied, forcing a smile. Just processing everything, I guess. Understandable, she said, her voice softening. We went through a lot, but we did it together. I nodded, recalling the moments we had shared during the ritual, the fear, the connection, the release. It had been an intense experience, one that had brought us closer together. You were incredible, Laura. I couldn't have done it without you. Before she could respond, Mark stepped forward again, clutching the amulet that Lily had given me. This belonged to Eleanor, he said, holding it out to me. She wanted you to have it. I hesitated, looking at the small, intricate piece of jewelry. It felt heavy in my palm, imbued with the weight of history and emotion. Are you sure? I asked, glancing between Mark and Sarah. Absolutely, Sarah chimed in, her voice firm. Eleanor would want you to have it. You helped free her spirit. I took a deep breath, nodding slowly as I accepted the amulet. Thank you, I'll cherish it. Lily stepped closer, her small hand reaching out. Can I see it? She asked, her eyes wide with curiosity. I nodded, gently lifting the amulet so she could get a better look. It's beautiful, she whispered, running her fingers over the cool metal. Eleanor will always be with you now. Yeah, I said, feeling a strange surge of emotion. She will. As we shared a moment of silence, I felt a connection not just to Eleanor, but to this family who had faced so much darkness and emerged stronger. It reminded me of the power of resilience, of how love and compassion could cut through even the thickest shadows. As we prepared to leave, I felt a sense of closure wash over me. Let's keep in touch, Laura suggested, her eyes brightening. You're part of our journey now. Definitely, Mark replied, a smile breaking through his earlier tears. You both are always welcome here. With one last look at the house, a place that had seen so much pain but also so much healing, I turned to Laura and said, We did good work today. She smiled back, her expression filled with warmth and understanding. Yes, we did. As we walked out into the crisp New England air, I held the amulet tightly in my hand, feeling its energy pulse with every step. I was reminded of the fragility of life, the importance of facing our fears, and the undeniable strength found in connection. As cool autumn air wrapped around me as Laura and I stepped out of the Miller house, the weight of our ordeal finally beginning to lift. It was hard to believe that we had managed to free not only the family but also the tormented souls trapped within those walls. I held the amulet Lily had given me, its surface cool against my palm, a tangible reminder of Eleanor's fate and the compassion that had ultimately set her free. David, Laura said, her voice still trembling with the remnants of our shared experience. You did well in there. We both did. She offered me a small smile, but the flicker of worry still danced in her eyes. Are you okay? I think so, I replied slowly, but even as I spoke, a gnawing feeling settled deep in my gut. It's just, I feel like there's something more, something I'm missing. I glanced back at the house, its once ominous presence, now softened by the fading light of dusk. It felt like a different place, a sanctuary, rather than a prison. As we walked further away, the ground beneath my feet felt oddly unstable, as if the earth itself was still reeling from the emotional tumult we had just witnessed. My thoughts drifted back to the amulet. What did it mean? A deep sense of connection tugged at my heart, and I couldn't shake the feeling that it was more than just a relic of Eleanor's past. Suddenly, a tremor coursed through the ground, causing me to stumble. Did you feel that? I asked, my heart racing. Laura looked at me, her brow furrowing in concern. Yeah, I did. It's probably just aftershocks from all the energy we unleashed. Let's keep moving, she urged, but something in my gut told me to stop. No, wait, I said, feeling an inexplicable pull to turn back toward the house. I need to stay here for a moment. I felt the amulet grow warm in my hand, pulsating with a rhythm that matched the thumping of my heart. I think I need to confront this feeling. David, be careful, Laura warned, stepping closer to me, her concern palpable. I took a deep breath and stepped forward, feeling the air thicken around me. As I focused, the world around me began to shift, shadows danced, and the familiar outline of the house blurred until it transformed into a fluid tapestry of memories and emotions. I closed my eyes and suddenly I was standing in a vast, luminous space, surrounded by swirling colors and echoes of laughter and pain. Then, amidst the chaos, I saw her. My sister Emily stood before me, bathed in a gentle light. Her hair glowed like spun gold, and a serene smile graced her lips. "David," she said, her voice like the softest melody, echoing in my mind. "I've been waiting for you." "Emily," I cried, rushing forward, tears stinging my eyes. "I thought I lost you forever. I've been searching for you." "I've always been here," she replied, her expression tender yet filled with an ancient wisdom. "In the shadows, guiding you, helping you face your fears. You've been so brave." "I didn't know how to save you," I whispered, the weight of guilt crashing over me like waves. "I thought I failed you. You didn't fail me," she interrupted gently, stepping closer. "You've carried my memory with you, and that has given me strength. But now, it's time for you to let go of the pain. You've done it for Eleanor, now do it for yourself." A wave of realization washed over me as I looked into her eyes. "You're not trapped, are you? You've been free all along." She nodded, her smile widening. "It was never about being trapped. It was about you finding your way to me. Your journey has brought you here, and I am so proud of you." I reached out to touch her, but she faded slightly, the light surrounding her flickering. "No, don't go," I pleaded, stretching my hand farther. "I need you to stay." "David," Emily said, her voice steady, "I'll always be with you in every step you take. Trust in that connection." As she spoke, I felt the warmth of the amulet in my palm radiate outward, a bridge between our worlds. "Promise me," I whispered, my voice breaking. "Promise me you'll always be by my side." "I promise," she replied, her figure shimmering. "Just remember, love and forgiveness are the strongest forces. They'll guide you." With that, she began to dissolve into the light, leaving me with an overwhelming sense of peace. The warmth of her love enveloped me, and I realized that I was not alone. I had never been alone. As I opened my eyes again, I was back outside the Miller house, the sunset painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. Laura stood next to me, her expression a mix of concern and relief. "You were gone for a moment, David. Are you all right?" I nodded, the amulet still warm in my hand. "I'm more than all right. I've found her, Laura. She's always been with me." A smile broke across Laura's face, and I knew in that moment that we had both emerged from the darkness stronger than before. "Let's go home," she said, taking my hand. As we walked away, I glanced back one last time at the house, its silence now a promise of peace and healing, a place where echoes of the past had finally found their rest.